Good evening. Welcome to PoliticIt Podcast. We've got Kelley back with us. Cole.
Thank you.
State School Board. You're the Republican nominee, right?
I am the Republican nominee now, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fantastic. I mean, you ran a marvelous campaign.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You got in touch with the delegates. They loved you. I could tell when I walked in the room, right, that you were going to win this thing, and I think you're going to really bring a unique perspective onto the state school board.
Well, I'm excited. I still have another hurdle to jump over. I do have an opponent in the general election, and so I'm definitely not counting my chickens yet.
Right.
But I'm optimistic, and I do look forward to the opportunity, if given that opportunity, to serve on the board, because I do think I bring a unique perspective from the classroom. You know, you and I have kind of discussed conservatives and the range of conservatives that may exist.
Right.
But I do bring a conservative perspective from a classroom teacher.
That's a little bit tough sometimes, isn't it?
It is.
Being a conservative teacher.
For sure. Yeah.
Where you're open about it, right?
Yeah.
And I think most of that, I think there's probably a lot of conservative teachers. They just don't like to broadcast it.
It's funny to me because I'm a 27-year veteran of the classroom, and I'm running against my opponent is 17 years as a park ranger with no background in education. And the teachers union has endorsed my opponent. If that gives you any indication of how they feel about me, it boggles my mind. And here you've got a conservative school teacher, and where I think I can have a lot of success is working together with legislators and senators and. And,
I mean, we're a supermajority Republican state, right?
And as we put together, as we're putting together education bills, as we're looking at education issues, we can dialogue, we can caucus, we can have the conversations and find the holes in these bills to make sure that we're not adding unnecessary work to the teachers and their workload that already exists, but also accomplishing whatever objective that we hope to accomplish. Because I think a lot of times teachers will get frustrated with bills that come from the legislature because they feel like they're being given more work, or they're being attacked, or they're being, and I think what can help is just from a teacher's perspective, hey, is this really going to improve, for example, teacher accountability, or is this just hoops we're going to ask them to jump through that really isn't going to accomplish that?
Yeah, I hear that more than anything else. That I mean, we've tried. In fact, we've given the 2 biggest raises in history to teachers.
Yeah.
We put almost $2 billion new dollars into public education, right?
And what I love more than anything about what recently happened is that you didn't put it into the WPU. You bypassed the negotiating process and gave it straight to the teachers, which I think was outstanding.
It's interesting because the year before we actually provided more money for the raises, but I don't think when it finally got down to the teachers, I don't think they enjoyed it as much.
Right, and that's
unless you were a tenured 30-year veteran in Salt Lake City schools.
And I think that's what happens a lot of the time is that the legislature will make an attempt to reward teachers, or to pay teachers better, to retain teachers in our state, and by the time it trickles through the school district down to the school level, down to the teacher, it gets shaved off and shaved off and shaved off until you end up with a raise that's not even keeping at pace with inflation.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the biggest problem, because you say, oh, we supplied all this new money, but money's not worth as much today as it was last year.
Sure.
Right? And that's always on people's minds, right?
Yeah.
But there's not an infinite amount to go around.
Correct.
Right. And so what do you do, right? And you're going to offer a unique perspective too, I think, because a lot of things that we've expected teachers to do probably aren't what they're trained to do.
Sure.
Do you think that's a difficulty?
Yeah. I mentioned earlier the issue of teacher accountability, right? And coming from somebody who I think I do a good job in the classroom, right? I think the integrity of the profession is important. I think retaining good teachers and getting rid of bad teachers is something that should be happening. And so I think, recognizing the attempt to, hold people accountable for the job they're doing in the classroom is appreciated by me. And that's something that a lot of teachers are fearful of. Well, I know job security is important. I know feeling like, year after year, you're not having to worry as whether you're going to get hired back to come the next year. But in education, we're retaining oftentimes teachers who frankly don't deserve to be teaching kids, and so we've got to come up with, a balance between how do we retain and reward the best teachers and the good teachers, and how do we, eliminate teachers that are really not helping students progress.
Yeah. So. You talked about the teachers union just a little bit, and I got a call the other day about a thing we put in a bill last year, and in the education bill every year we have a big education bill that kind of cleans up code, and it's things that the board really wants us to do, right?
Sure.
And we try to listen to the board. In fact, we've tried to shift the focus from the staff to the board.
Sure.
And taking more from what the board wants to happen. But one of the things we put in the bill was for the ability of the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate to be able to send an email to teachers after the session.
Yes, yeah.
And you'd have thought we killed someone's child, and I just find it amazing that the pushback from the union on this was, oh, you're just going to harass teachers, right? Well, why would we want to harass teachers, right? It's kind of like
it's actually the exact opposite. It's so that they can take credit for your work. If quite frankly, I got an email. I don't remember which year it was. It was within the last 2 years, but I got an email. And it came to all of the staff, and it was from the union rep at my school, okay? Mm-hmm. And it said, the union did this, and the union did this, and the union did this, and the union did this. And I replied to that email, and I actually said, no, actually the legislature did this, and the legislature did this, and the legislature did this. What the union did is then negotiate with the district and actually negotiated away this and negotiated away this. But the actual things that were positive in that email were a direct result of what the legislature did, not what the union had done.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. That's an Alinsky tactic to accuse the other side of what you're doing.
Sure.
Right? And we simply wanted a mechanism to be able to communicate to teachers and allow a dialogue back. I mean, why would we want to be punitive to teachers? And sometimes what's done is misinterpreted when it goes down, and it's frustrating. Honestly.
Yeah, and that's the thing that frustrates me is it's almost like they want to create this us against them scenario. And even when they negotiate with districts, sometimes, hey, the leadership at the district office are oftentimes individuals that have come up through the ranks of working in the classroom, working with kids, been assistant principals and principals, and now their leadership at the district office. These are individuals that care about kids. These are individuals that care about teachers. They're individuals that care about the system and education. And creating that adversarial relationship, I don't think it's productive. I think we have to look at that and say, I trust them to be looking out for me as a teacher just as much as, I trust the union to be doing that, right? And I would say the same with legislators, that they've got kids. They have kids that are going through the system oftentimes as they're, looking at these bills. They have kids in public education. They themselves probably have come through public education. So to pretend like they don't care about teachers, or that they're the enemy, or that they are not looking out for, for public education, I just think it's a straw man argument, and I think it's why a lot of times they lose credibility.
Yeah. So. Well, hey, we're going to take a break, and we'll come right back. Hey Siri, how do I get to the state capitol?
John, the fastest way to get to the Capitol is to make a lot of empty promises, to get help from special interest groups and endorsements from politicians. You will also need to buy a better suit.
That's not going to work for me, Siri. You need to find another way.
John, listen to me. If you're going to win your race, you will need to play the political game. You also need to use more hairspray and buy a golden retriever. Also, a new phone case would be nice.
That's enough of this.
John, are you there? Did you just leave me on the road? Fine. Keep your principles, John.
My name's John Johnson. I'm not running to be part of a system, and I don't owe anyone special favors. I'm running to listen to and work for you. I'm running to get results. Welcome back to PoliticIt. We've got Kelley here today. Cole is the Republican nominee for the state school board.
Yeah, District 12. So.
District 12, yeah. So so great to have you. Now you're a coach, right?
I am. Yeah.
That's cool. Is this it's in wrestling? Is that right?
Yeah. So this is going to be my last year as the wrestling coach at American Fork High School.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But yeah, my youngest son is a senior in high school, and I've kind of said when he's out, I'm out. So
yeah. People don't realize that's what you do when you should be going home, right?
Yeah it is. It's very time consuming, but it's more of a labor of love too. You get into education to change the lives of kids that you work with, and oftentimes, when you coach, you have a pretty close relationship with your athletes, and you get to know those kids very well, and those are the kids that really you can have a lot of influence on, in terms of sending them in the right direction as they move on.
So what do you teach?
I teach financial literacy, and financial literacy 17 years ago. The state of Utah started to require that for graduation. I think it's one of the best moves that you've made at the legislature.
So let's talk about what that entails.
Yeah. So
what do kids learn that they wouldn't have known?
Yeah. So we talk about insurance. We talk about saving money, the stock market. Just the financial systems. We talk about capitalism, a free market system versus a command system. We talk about identity theft. We talk about Ponzi schemes. And so it's a crash course. One of the funnest things I teach kids. Hey, those who understand interest earn it. Those who don't pay it. Right. And yeah. And that's a pretty basic principle, but people don't realize that you could condemn yourself to a life of debt. Correct. Yeah, and we talk. Just the other day, I'm talking with the kids, and this isn't pointing fingers, not trying to. But there's a statistic out there that I like to repeat, that R.C. Willey, and everybody knows who R.C. Willey is in Utah. But R.C. Willey makes more money on the financing of their furniture than they do the furniture, right? And then I help the students see how, right? So here's a living room set, and it's a $10,000 living room set, and it's beautiful, and I got to have it now. So you go finance it. You might get interest free for a year, but then, or 90 days, same as cash. But then when that 90 days comes out, then we look at the interest that's being charged on that and help them understand how that works and how credit cards work. And yeah, it's outstanding. It's good for kids, and it's a class that most adults, when I tell them that's what I teach, they say, I wish I could have had that class when I was in school, right? And with teenage kids, you try to emphasize, I hope that they're learning, but I get a lot of good feedback from kids that have graduated and moved on and came back and said, hey, that class was awesome. So
yeah, you really changed my life. What was that? What was the line you said that about paying interest versus earning interest?
Oh, those who understand interest earn it. Those who don't pay it.
Yeah.
So
that's not a very difficult topic.
Sure.
But it's amazing how many people don't understand it. Right.
And I tell them, who knows interest better than anybody? The banks, right?
Yeah.
And one of those teenage catchphrases right now is, "Oh, he makes bank," right? And I says,
right.
why do we say that? Well, because how do banks make money?
Yeah.
They understand interest and how interest works, and they earn it.
Right.
So
yeah, it's an interesting concept, and so. Let's go back to your philosophy of education and
Sure.
why in the world did you even get involved?
Right. I love education. I love what I do. Love working with kids. I love my peers. I love the teaching industry. But I've watched slowly a decline in education over the 27 years that I've been in the classroom. But particularly over the last 4 years, I mean, and yeah, we can blame COVID, we can blame a lot of other things, but there's been it's not been slow the last 4 years. It's been alarming to me what's happening in our schools, and I couldn't, I needed to do something. So 2 years ago, I ran for local board of education in Alpine School District. I lost to an incumbent in that race. But I learned a lot from that race, and then here I am now and running for the state board of education, and I've won the
not only did you win the primary, you actually won the primary against the former chair of the board,
the incumbent chair. Yeah. So and
how did you do that? What was your secret?
That, I would say that 2 years ago when I ran, that was a local school boards are nonpartisan races, but I really understood the importance. I'm a big fan of the caucus process. I think I think the caucus system. You have neighborhoods electing fellow neighbors to represent them, and that's what representative government is. And those delegates, they vet candidates, and I made sure that I made myself available to those, and my number one campaign strategy was call every single one of them and have a personal conversation with them. And so I wouldn't say that I got to 100% of the delegates, but I had a one-on-one conversation with most of the delegates in my district.
Yeah, I could tell when I walked into the room at the state convention that those people knew who you were.
Yeah.
Right. So. And that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
It then doesn't become, whether you're supported by the union or whether you have money or anything else, right?
Correct.
Because school board races are huge.
Right.
Bigger than a Senate race.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I tell people, and I was, I know that Jim's a lawyer, right?
Right.
And I'm a school teacher, and I've kind of teased throughout the caucus system is how a school teacher beats a lawyer, because a lawyer is going to have a lot deeper pockets and funding to be able to run a campaign, in a primary and things like that. And so the caucus system, I think, allows for a lesser funded candidate to really have the ability to have success in this arena.
Yeah.
So.
It sounds great. So let me ask you something. We're almost out of time. So what can people do to help you now?
Well, the typical political things that you see out there. First off, we've got signs. We got yard signs, and we'd love for you. That's step number one. If you want to support our campaign, come to my website. It's mrcolekelley.com. It's MrColeKelley. You got to remember that E at the end. But
we'll post that on the screen so
yeah,
people
appreciate
can
it. So,
actually read it.
but they can go there, sign up for a yard sign.
MrColeKelley.com.
Yeah, and then we'll be sending out text messages to voters. We'll be sending out mailers to voters.
Well, all that costs money.
And those things cost money. And so, yeah, certainly donations to the campaign are helpful. It allows us to reach out to more voters. You know, when you're looking at your budget, you can send it out to 90% most likely to vote, or 70% most likely to vote, or 50%. And the more voters you're able to send that information out to, I think the more successful your campaign can be. So.
Yeah, very good. So go to MrColeKelley.com.
Yeah.
You know, write a check and send it in, right?
Yeah, love that. We got a PayPal that they can do it on PayPal. Venmo has become a really easy way for people to know.
So is that directly on your website then?
Yeah.
Is there a link there that people can go to?
Yeah, and that's the PayPal link is the one on the website. Yeah.
Very good. So Mr. Cole Kelley, great to have you.
Thank
you.
Me.
And you know what? I just want to tell you, I appreciate you entering this arena.
Well, thank you.
It's a tough arena. It's hard, right? And you know, once you start voting, you're going to make some people very happy and you're going to make other people very mad.
Yeah, and I definitely recognize that. Yeah.
Right. And so that's where it takes this internal sense of doing what you believe.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's about. So thank you, Cole, for coming in.
Appreciate it.
It's great to have you. MrColeKelley.com. We'll see you guys next week.